All right, everybody, welcome back. It's been a minute, but we're back with a little cooking class. I'm Chef Jeremy, as always, your friendly neighborhood kitchen man. Today we're going to be making a little chicken souvlaki rice bowl. So basically, souvlaki chicken is just marinated chicken. It's like a Greek thing, but instead of marinating the chicken in those flavors, we're just going to take all of those marinade flavors and put them into our veggies, and then throw it over some rice. So we'll get started here. This one is going to take a lot of stuff and a lot of prep. So I'm going to move a little quicker than usual, but I think we're getting a little better at this kind of stuff. So real quick, obviously we're going to need some chicken breasts. I just got the thin sliced ones. If you get the whole ones, just pound them out a little thinner so they cook nice and even. We got some rice. You can use whatever grain you prefer. We're just going to use some light brown rice. I was going to use farro, but I couldn't find any at the store. So we'll just use the nice, healthy, light brown rice instead. For our veggies, we've got zucchini, red bell pepper, onion, cucumber, some mushrooms. We've got some chickpeas. You can just get the canned chickpeas, little cherry tomatoes, some fresh garlic, a lemon. What else here? And then for our herbs, we've got a little fresh oregano, fresh dill. If you want to use dried stuff, that's perfectly fine as well. We've got a little thing of Greek yogurt here and some balsamic vinegar. So what we're going to do, cook the rice, cook the chicken, cut the veggies, make the sauce, put it all together. So we'll get started here real quick. I've got my oven set to 400 degrees. I've got my rice and water already measured out. So for this rice, it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. So 1 part rice and 2 parts water. So what I'm going to do here is I've got about 2¼ cups of water in here, just in case I put a little extra water, just in case I happen to forget and not turn around. Gives me a little more time. And then just a cup of rice. And then what we'll do is just stir that up a little bit, make sure all that rice gets nice and coated in water. And then we'll put it on the burner over, let's go like a medium-high heat. And what we want to do is just get that stuff boiling. And then once it's boiling, we're going to turn it down to like a nice light simmer and let that cook for about 15 minutes or so. So what we can do is throw a lid right on top of there, and we'll just make sure we keep an eye on it. We don't want to boil it too long before we turn the heat down, otherwise the rice can kind of rip to pieces. But here in about 2 minutes or so, it should be boiling, and we'll turn that down. While we wait for that, we'll get going on our chicken. So like I said, I got the thin cut ones, and I've just put them on a plate and thrown some paper towels on top. That helps get out all that extra moisture. So you can see they're nice, evenly sized, shaped, and everything. They should be nice and dry by now, so that's what we're looking for. That's going to help them get that good sear. And then I've got my fancy grill pan. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. It's got nice lines on it, but if you just have a regular pan or whatever, that's perfectly fine. So I'm going to get that pan heating up over medium-high heat as well. And usually I use olive oil, but I apparently ran out of olive oil. So I've got a little coconut oil here, and I just threw it in the microwave for about 30 seconds. So now it's nice and liquidy. But I'm just going to throw about a teaspoon or so just in the pan to help everything get a good sear on it and get a little crispy grill marks going. So we're just going to take our chicken. You can do it right on top of the paper towel if you want. Hit it with a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Not too much. There we go. And then you can just take your paper towel and grab it by the corners here and flip them upside down. There we go. I guess I'll have to touch it. Try not to touch it, but that's okay. Sometimes you gotta. So whenever you're dealing with raw stuff, just make sure you wash your hands before you get to the fresh stuff. But this is all getting cooked anyway, so it's no big deal. A little more salt on the other side. And a little more pepper. Perfect. All right. Normally, when you're making souvlaki chicken, the idea is to marinate it. So the marinade would be some fresh oregano, some lemon juice, some garlic, and olive oil, and you let that sit in there for at least like 4 hours or so, anywhere up to like 24 at the max. But since we don't have time to stand here and watch chicken marinade for 4 hours, we're going to switch it up and take those flavors, put them into the veggies, and then we can just cook our chicken just in a pan. So we'll let that heat up real quick. So you'll know your pan's hot when you can see your oil kind of running almost like it's water. If it still looks a little thick, that means your pan's not quite hot enough yet, but it looks like I've got some nice runny oil. It's kind of hard to see, but it looks like it's nice and hot. So we'll take a look at these here. I can still touch the pan, so if I can still touch it without burning myself, we'll give it about another minute. Check on the rice. And it looks like that's just starting to lightly bubble, so we'll give that rice about another minute or so too. What we can start with, I think we'll do the cucumber last, just because that's going to go into our sauce, and we'll start with our cooked vegetables. So for this, we're going to do the zucchini, the bell pepper, the onion, some mushrooms. I've got little baby Bella mushrooms here. We'll do about 4 or 5 of those. Our cherry peppers and the chickpeas. If you got a can of chickpeas, what I like to do is just pour them into a little strainer. Just pour them all in there, give them a good rinse and shake them around. It gets that kind of like gooey garbanzo bean juice off of there. And then just let those drain so they're nice and dry. And then I've set those aside. We'll also put our oregano in this vegetable mix, as well as the lemon juice and some fresh garlic. So let's throw this chicken in the pan real quick. Trusty tongs. All right, you want to hear that good sizzle when you throw your meat into the pan. That lets you know it's working. If you put your meat into the pan and it makes no noise whatsoever, probably just wasn't hot enough. But luckily, it's a nonstick pan, so we don't have to worry. But if you're using a regular like steel pan and you put it into cold, like put meat into a cold pan, it's going to stick really bad. So definitely get those pans hot first. So let's go ahead and get started. I got a nice big bowl here. Perfect. So my rice is boiling. I got that turned down. All right. So when my rice starts boiling, I just turn the heat down to like a medium low, like a 3 or a 4. Give it one quick stir, and then you can just put the lid back on and kind of forget about it for about 15 minutes. So let me set a timer. Cool. All right, so when that timer goes off, we'll check on the rice. I'll let the chicken cook on one side for a couple minutes. So we'll get started here with our veggies. Go with the zucchini. We're just going to take the ends off, take off the top and the bottom, and then we're going to take it and just slice it lengthwise. And then we'll do the same thing one more time. to both sides, and then we should have nice little triangle shaped quarters. Then from there, we're going to cut those into dices. We just want them about a half-inch thick or so. You want them pretty chunky. That way they don't get soggy while they're trying to cook. If you cut them too thin, they're just going to get really steamy and watery. If we want them to get nice and crispy on the outside, this will help them take longer to cook on the inside. So we should have nice little zucchini chunks. Fill those into our big mixing bowl of goodies. All right, and I can start to smell that chicken. So I'm going to turn around and give that a flip. Give it about another minute or so. Then let's move on to our onion. So you want kind of a small onion, just so you're not overpowering yourself with onion flavor. This one's pretty small. You can also use stuff like shallots are really good. But this is a pretty small onion on its own, so we should be okay. Just take off the top and bottom, and then I'm going to cut it in half. And then when I cut it in half, it's just like that. And then I can pull the skin right off. I like to just find whatever layer looks the thinnest that I can grab onto and just pull that right off. And sometimes this is also nice because you'll have like that outer layer or two that's a little soggier than the rest, so you can pull off as much as you like. You want to get those nice grill marks on there before you flip it. And try not to mess with your chicken too much while it's in the pan. If you're just searing it on a flat pan, that's fine. But if you want those nice grill marks, just set it down, forget about it for about 2 minutes. Then we're going to take our onion halves. I'm just going to cut it down this way, and then we'll chop it into little dices. So we'll take it just like this, and then go the other way. You should have nice little pieces of diced onion. And just throw those right into the bowl. Try to break them up a little bit. That way you don't have big chunks of onion in there. We'll do the same thing with the other half. Perfect. And then we'll just do the same thing, break them up a little bit, get those big chunks taken apart. All right. And then, since we're about ready to put that chicken in the oven, I'm just going to do some quick mushrooms. So I gave them a good wash, a little scrub with my fingers to get that extra dirt off of there. And with these, we're just going to kind of quarter them. That way I get these nice chunky mushrooms. Just cut them into quarters. If you have really big mushrooms, you can cut them a little smaller. But these are going to lose a lot of moisture while they're cooking, so they'll shrink quite a bit. And also they cook a lot faster than everything else, so you don't really have to worry about them being raw in the middle or anything. Cool. There's about 5 mushrooms in there and a little mix. I'm going to go ahead and transfer my chicken to a pan. Just put it right on here. All right. Get rid of that background noise. And then, like I said, I've got my oven at 400 degrees. So I'm going to take my nice little chicken breasts. They got good grill marks on both sides that I'm looking for. So now we just want to cook them in the oven for like 5-10 minutes or so. These are cut pretty thin, so they won't take too long. So I've got 8 minutes left on the rice, which is about how long I want to cook that chicken for. So that's perfect. When that timer goes off, we'll check both of those. But for now, we'll just continue with our veggies. So we've got mushrooms, onions, zucchini. Next, we're going to do our bell pepper. There's a couple ways to cut a bell pepper, but the way I like to do it is just get as close to the top as I can. And I'll chop through that green just a little bit. So you'll see in there, there's still some stem left. And then it also left me a nice little piece to work with on the top. And I can just throw that extra piece of stem away. And then you'll see you got like some little finger holes. So you just reach right in there. Then you can pull out the seeds. And if you have any little stragglers, you just go right in, pull those out of there. And then I'll take my little top piece and I'm just going to cut it into like big, once again, 1/2-inch dices or so, about the same size as my onions. They're just nice little pieces. And we'll throw that into our mix. Then we've got this guy, so I'll just set it down so the hollow side is facing down. And then cut it in half, so I'll end up with nice 2 pieces. Lay it down again. And then we'll just cut that into strips. And then we'll cut those strips once again into nice diced pieces. So same thing with the other half. Sound effects help, but they're not needed all the time. So now we've got peppers, mushrooms, onions, zucchini. Then I've got these nice little cherry tomatoes. You can cut these if you want to. You don't have to. You can also just plop them in their hole and they'll do their thing. But just for the sake of having a few more to put into the mix, we'll just cut them in half. And if you want to, you can just double down on the tomatoes and keep them whole. But we'll cut those in half. I think I've got about 8 or 9 of them here. Then we've got most of our mix in there. So I'm going to take my little, about 1/2 cup of garbanzo beans. Throw those into the mix. And then we're going to take some fresh garlic. I've got about 3 cloves here. I'm going to save one of them for my tzatziki sauce that we'll make later. But for now, I'm just going to take these 3 cloves of garlic and I'm going to take off the little butts here. You don't have to, I just prefer to. And then we're just going to give them a nice good mincing. So we can take those and just chop them up. There's really no technique for this. You're just trying to get them nice and small. Kind of work your knife around them. And it helps to have a nice big cutting board like this because if they're jumping around, I can just kind of scoop them all back to the middle, make a nice little pile, and give them a good chopping. And if you're a fan of garlic like me, you can throw in a little extra. You can even keep these in bigger chunks if you wanted to. You can keep them whole depending on how long you cook them. You just want to make sure you don't get that raw garlic flavor, but we'll just throw those right into our big mixing bowl here. So I got about 3 minutes left on the timer. We'll check that in just a sec. But for now, we're going to take our lemon. And what I like to do when I'm getting the juice out is just roll it on my board. And you can put quite a bit of pressure into it. You want to kind of feel those little pods of juice kind of popping on the inside. And it should go from firm to nice and squishable. That just means we got that juice nice and loosened up. Then what I'm going to do is just cut it in half. I've got quite a bit of seeds in here. So I'll just take my little strainer from earlier, put that right in the bowl, and squeeze some lemon juice in there. If you want to use a juicer, go for it. But I like to just take a nice little spoon and kind of jam it in there, pop those little juice pods. And you can be as rough with it as you want, because if you got a strainer, you don't have to worry about seeds and stuff getting in there. But just squeeze it until all the juice comes out. Perfect. And then nice and lemon scented. Get rid of that garlic smell. All that. So my rice is almost done. I just turned down the heat a little more. Now we're closer to the low side of things. I'm going to save this for later because I do have another half of a lemon that I'm going to use. So I'll just put that with my little sauce bowl here. And last, we're going to take some fresh oregano. So you just pluck off the little leaves. Like I said, if you want to use dried, that's perfectly fine too. But it's summertime, so let's go fresh as we can. Kind of like the garlic, we're just going to put it in a pile and chop it all up. So I've got about 2 tablespoons of chopped oregano here. And this part, the herbs and stuff, is entirely up to you. If you want to use a little more, you can, a little less, go for it. But I'm just going to take this nice chopped stuff here and throw that right on top of the pile. And there's still some whole leaves in there. I'm not too worried about it. You want to get those little sticks out of there. But if you don't mince it all the way, it's no big deal. It's all going to get cooked together. All right, so my rice looks like it's just about done. All that water that was sitting on the top is gone and it's looking close. So I'm just going to leave it on the burner. I'll actually put it on the back burner with just the warm setting on, so it just keeps it nice and warm. And any leftover moisture at the bottom of the rice will just kind of continue to steam out, but it won't overcook it. So now it looks like we got everything in there. Oh, I have one right here. So I hear you. Yeah, so let's turn it back on. Oh my goodness, don't go too far. There we go. So 400. And we'll take a look at this chicken real quick. All right, so we've got our chicken out of the oven. Once again, these are really thin cuts, so they don't take long to cook at all. But if you've got some bigger ones, you want to make sure they're cooked all the way through. As you can see, I'm in another kitchen. Hopefully this one's a little more permanent. So I can't find my thermometer anywhere, probably in a box somewhere, but I do have this cake tester, which is just basically a metal toothpick. And so what I'm going to do is put it right into the thickest part of whatever breast is bigger, and let it sit in there for a sec, then pull it out. And it feels hot, but it's not super hot. I want it to almost burn my lip a little bit. Not so much that it actually burns, but you want it to be nice and hot, or if you can touch it to your wrist, If it feels warm, it means you're not quite cooked all the way. So I'm just a little like step past warm. So I'll just put it back in the oven. And let that cook for about as long as it's going to take me to mix this stuff. So I've got my coconut oil. Once again, coconut oil is solid at room temperature. So I just put this in the microwave ahead of time. And now it's a nice liquid. But just going to throw about a tablespoon on there. Don't want to go too crazy. And then I just had a spatula. Where did I put it? So, oh, it's over there. Perfect. But new spatula. So now we're just going to mix this stuff around. Make sure everything gets coated with just a little bit of oil, a little bit of lemon juice, some of that oregano. And then we're going to take some salt, just about a teaspoon of salt on there. And then a little bit of pepper. About a half teaspoon of pepper. And you're just going to mix that stuff around. You don't have to worry about salting ahead of time too much because you can always salt it, at the end to your taste. But the salt will help it, retain that good flavor in the cooking process. And it'll also draw out some extra moisture from the vegetables and get them nice and crispy. So I'm just going to mix this stuff around until I feel like everything's got a little bit of oregano and stuff on it. So here we go. We've got our nice salad. If you want to, you can eat this raw. It's perfectly fine. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and cook them. And they're not going to take very long at all, about the same amount of time as it's going to take for us to get the rest of this stuff ready. So I pulled that chicken out of the oven, and then I've got my nice big tray of veggie mix. If you have like tin foil or anything, go ahead and put that on the bottom of your pan. I don't have any tin foil left, so I just got some parchment paper, but you can just put it straight on the pan if you want. Tin foil just helps with the cleanup. I'll stick those veggies right in the oven, still at 400 degrees, and we can just kind of forget about those for it'll take a while for those to overcook. If they get a little char on them, that's perfect. Just adds to the flavor. But for now, we're going to go ahead and make our tzatziki sauce. So this is like a quick way to do it. I guess before I get to that part, get you excited. We're going to start with our cucumber. So just any cucumber will do. What we're going to do is peel all the skin off. And there's a couple ways to do this. It helps really well if you have like a cheese grater or a blender of some sort, but I'm just trying to do this one as simply as I can with a knife. So we're going to peel all that skin off. You can throw that in your garden or whatever you want to. I don't have a garden here, so I'm going to worry about that. But we'll just take the ends off of there. So I've got a nice peeled cucumber. And then kind of the same way we did the zucchini, I'm just going to lay it down and cut it lengthwise down the middle. And then we'll do the same thing once again, lengthwise down the middle. Same thing with the other side here. Now here's the other trick, what we're going to do. So you can see the seeds in there. So I've got like my angle right here. Yep, kind of perfect. So we're going to lay it on the board just like this. So it's nice and flat and the seeds are facing that way. And I'm just going to take the seeds out of here. So we should end up with a nice little seed pod. And then you have no seeds on your cucumber left. If you're using something like an English cucumber, which are the really long ones that come like individually packaged, the seeds in those aren't too big, so you shouldn't even have to do this part. But with these regular cucumbers, especially the bigger they get, the bigger your seeds are going to be. And we just don't want that in our sauce. It's going to be a weird texture and add a lot of moisture. So I'm just going to take all these seeds out. Let's go a little deeper right here. Perfect. So you can see it's taking out the little bits of seeds. Then what we're going to do, I'm going to cut this in half one more time, even thinner. The smaller you can get these pieces, the better. That way they kind of blend into the sauce without being too chunky, but hence why a blender is really good, or a cheese grater. But for this, I'm just going to chop it really super thin. And this will kind of help you practice your knife skills. What you want to do is make like a little claw with your hand, and just bump your knife right up against your flat knuckles there. And then you can just kind of grab the top of the cucumbers. And if you just put your knife blade right up against the back of your fingers, you can just gradually start moving your hand back. And it'll help you get those really good thin slices without chopping your fingers. A lot of people try to put their hand flat, but you don't want to do that. That's how you lose a fingertip. But just keep that nice knuckle, almost like a monkey's paw or something. And then when you get to the end, you just kind of rough chop them. So with these, I'm going to go back and make that pile again. I'm just going to get this stuff nice and mincy. But you don't need any fancy kitchen gadgets for this. You can do it all with a knife and a little metal toothpick. All right, so I'm just trying to get these into really tiny, fine pieces. You can keep it chunkier if you want to. This is just a preference thing. Tzatziki sauce has a little bit of a chunk to it. So I don't like to grate mine all the way in a blender because then you almost kind of lose it. I do want a little bit of chunkiness. So I'm going to take my bowl here and we'll just throw this cucumber right in there. If you want to, you can take your cucumber and wrap it in like a paper towel or something and give it a good squeeze, and that'll get rid of any extra juice or water that's in there. There's a lot of moisture in cucumber. So if you kind of wring it out a little bit in a paper towel, it'll get rid of all that extra water. But since we didn't blend them up, we just chopped them. We shouldn't have a whole lot of water sitting at the bottom. If you blend them, that's a different story. You definitely want to strain them off a little bit. But now we've got our Greek yogurt here. I'm just going to put that right in here. That's just about a cup of yogurt. 1 cucumber. I'm going to take my little strainer bowl and my other half of the lemon from earlier, and we'll just give that a good squeeze. Once again, you can dig in there with a spoon and stuff, but this one feels pretty good. So I can just kind of squeeze it until I get all that juice out of there. Give it a little shake, shake. Right, and then I'm gonna take, I've got some fresh dill. So this is way more than you're gonna need. I just plucked all of it at once. But we're gonna take a nice little handful of this fresh dill. If you're doing dried stuff, you want about 2 tablespoons or so. So I'm gonna chop this stuff up. And when I chop it, it looks like a lot right now, but once I chop it up, this will be probably about a 2 tablespoon pinch here. You're gonna be doing a lot of this mincing and chopping. Once again, if you want to throw all this stuff together in the blender, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to impress some people with your knife skills, practice makes perfect. All right, so I'm gonna take this nice little pile of dill and put that right into my sauce bowl. I'm gonna get as much of this as I can, get that good fresh stuff. I got a little piece of cucumber being obnoxious here. There we go. Oop. All right, and then I've got my 1 extra little clove of garlic here. I'm gonna do the same thing. And I'm doing the claw thing now, but I'm just doing 1 little finger. And with this stuff, I want to chop it as small as I can, just so I don't get a big bite of raw garlic in my sauce, but it'll go a lot quicker because it's just 1 little piece. So we'll throw that guy in there, come back, get all that good dill off of there. All right, and then we've got our big bowl of stuff, so you can kind of see a little bit of everything. We've got our cucumber, our yogurt, garlic, dill. Then we're going to take some balsamic vinegar, just about a tablespoon. You can use any vinegar you want, and you can even leave it out if you want to, but this just helps add that kind of zippiness to it. Cucumber doesn't have a whole lot of flavor on its own, so you kind of have to boost it up a little bit with the acid and the lemon juice. So let's do this. I'm just going to use a little regular spoon, mix this stuff together. All right. And that balsamic vinegar is going to give it a little bit of a pale brown color, but it's going to get a good flavor profile in there. So if you want to use just regular vinegar or apple cider, you certainly can. I'm going to do a little bit of salt in there, just because Greek yogurt and cucumber by itself, once again, is kind of plain. But just about a half teaspoon or so of salt, not a whole lot. And then we'll do just another little pinch of black pepper. All right, so now you have a nice little tzatziki sauce. Might be kind of hard to see, but here, let's see if I can do this. Oh wait, you know what? Hey, it has a nice reflection on my face, but you can see a little better. We've got our nice sauce. It's a little more like watery and drippy, and that's kind of what we're looking for. Just because that cucumber adds so much moisture to the mix. We'll save all this stuff for the next batch. And since this is technically a bowl, a rice bowl, we will get that glare off my face here. We're gonna get our chicken. So we've let the chicken rest for about 5 or 6 minutes, which is enough time for it to retain the juice. So I'm just gonna take this little guy here and we're gonna cut it up. You can cut it into dices or you can keep it whole or you can cut it into strips, however you wanna do it. If you wanna get that good restaurant look, you can cut it on a bias, which is like at an angle. But we'll just take that guy, try to keep it together. Right, I'm gonna take my rice. Perfect. It got a little sticky just because I let it sit there maybe a little too long. Take the lid off once it's done cooking. I was just trying to keep it warm, but that made it a little more sticky rice-like. But we're gonna do about a cup of rice or a little less, about three quarters cups. All right, we'll check on those veggies. We want those vegetables to be a little crispy still. They could probably use like another 5 minutes or so, but they look really nice. So you can see they still have that like nice fresh color. They're not brown or anything. The zucchini is soft, but it's not squishy. That's kind of actually what I'm looking for. I want it to have that good crispiness. Let's just use this guy. So we'll take a little bit of those and kind of sprinkle them over our bowl. Let's see. We want to try to get some color there too. So let's get some of that red, some of those tomatoes, some chickpeas, zucchini. We want a good mix of everything. All right. So you kind of want to just put a nice layer over the top of your rice. And then we're going to take our chicken breast. And like I said, try to keep it together if you want it to look cool, or you can just mix it all together, whatever you prefer. So now I've got my bowl with my chicken on top. Let's see if I can keep that right there. And then we'll take our spoon with our sauce and we'll just do some little dollops. All right, and what we're looking for, odd numbers in plating. So if you have 5 little dollops or 3 little dollops, it always looks better than an even number for whatever reason. I don't know, but that is our little dish. So we've got our chicken, our sauce, our veggies, and underneath is the rice. If you want to dice your chicken, you can do that too. But for plating's sake, that's pretty much everything. You can garnish with some fresh stuff on top if you want to, but that's it.